Hello everyone, my name is Edgar Olivo, and this is our first segment of Energize Your Business, where we're going to be talking to amazing leaders, amazing people who are doing great things in the world. And it's a very exciting time for Compass CBS because this is our first English segment that we are now streaming live for you to share and like and enjoy and learn and grow. And I cannot wait to introduce you our very first guest. His name is Michael Seaver. He is an executive coach. He is a podcast host. He is also an author. He's done amazing work in the community. He is highly decorated professional, and I cannot wait to hear from him because he's got so much information that he's going to share with you to start off this year to very strong and making sure that we have those things that we really need to think about as we move forward into this new year. As you see that this is our new first segment, we've been doing these streaming, these business educational shows for the last 2.5 years in Spanish, and now it's my pleasure to bring them to you in English. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot of information that I'm going to be sharing with you every week. Every week I'm going to have a new guest, and I would love for you to keep growing with us and share this video, like it, comment, send your hellos with us. We'd love to engage with you, and that way we can keep this segment lively and rolling. All right, Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you so much, Edgar, for inviting me on the show.
Oh, this is great. This is great. I have been wanting to interview you for a long time. I know you've interviewed me, and I can't wait to share the podcast that we had together. I was thinking about the interview that we had, and I was like, oh my gosh, the questions that he was asking, it just kind of gave me this like energy of inspiration to just kind of tell you everything. I just opened myself up to you. So now I thought, we're going to turn the tables, and I want to hear about Michael as well.
Sure.
About all of the things that you... So Michael, tell us about your upbringing, because you're here, and you're doing amazing work, and everything that you're doing has a purpose.
Sure.
So tell me about your story.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for asking.
Yeah.
So I was raised in a very, very small town in West Michigan, and my grandfather, back in 1953, started our family's landscaping, lawn maintenance, and snow plowing business.
Okay.
My dad bought it in 1987, so from age 12 until 24, I worked in the family business.
Okay.
Cutting grass, shoveling dirt, plowing snow, all of the fun things.
Yeah.
And I learned through that that there's a lot to be said about employee engagement and the things that we do to deeply engage people in the most authentic way possible to those persons.
Right, right.
And just being raised in that very, very small conservative town, there wasn't a whole lot of focus on authenticity. And that always was a struggle for me because I wanted to display that authentic self, didn't have a chance.
Right, right.
So ended up finishing college and then getting married, and I came out to Arizona in 2003. And I worked in hospitality, so you and I have that history or background the same.
Yes,
And so for about 4 years, I was working in the hospitality industry and learned what it meant to anticipate someone's needs. And that has helped me tremendously in my work that I do today. Because
I think everyone should work in the hospitality industry. What do you think about that?
That would be awesome. That would be great, because there's something to be said for not only providing a high level of guest service,
right.
but also just understanding what does it take to influence and persuade somebody.
Right.
Regardless of where they're coming from, or where their background, all those fun things.
Yep.
So the economy wasn't so great in 2007, 2008.
Yep.
And so I ended up stopping a full-time job, and I went to the Thunderbird School of Global Management to get a degree. And that's really where my life changed.
Yeah.
Because I was, like I said, I was married at the time, and she and I decided to divorce, and I lost some money. I lost my house. A lot of things happened for me that needed to happen. Taught me some tough lessons that I needed to hear, and ended up getting the degree through Thunderbird. But the thing that was most impactful from Thunderbird for me was a coach that I had that actually suggested that I become a coach.
Wow.
And this is the great thing about relationships and social connectedness and the people that are around us, is that we oftentimes find inspiration from those other people. And she and some of my classmates definitely set me down the path that I am on now. So I'm so incredibly thankful.
I love that. Yeah.
So did that. I ended up going to Banner Health after graduation as the director of talent sourcing, and saw what does it take to bring people into an organization from a sourcing or recruiting standpoint.
Right.
And I really loved the idea of matching a person to a job or to a career or to something about themselves that was helping them become authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And after a couple of years, I realized that I wanted to be able to do that for myself, but also in a more coaching context as opposed to for a company.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in 2011, I ended up starting Seaver Consulting and coaching. And I made this really, really fun but awkward decision to quit Banner Health cold turkey. And that was a very, very scary time.
That is scary for a lot of people, right? I remember having to leave my job too because I wanted to start my business. I understand that fear so well
Yeah.
that I can recognize it. Can you spot it when you
Oh,
see
man.
it? Yeah.
There's just a feeling in my heart each time. Totally. Oh, man. But those are the blessings that life often gives us, is if
Yeah.
we can recognize our intuition in that capacity,
Right.
it helps us so much.
Right, right.
So I was not doing terribly well as a coach, right? I wasn't able to like really pick up clients. My process, I hadn't solidified it yet. So I was dropping the ball in a number of areas, but thankfully, W.B. Carey at Arizona
Yeah.
State University picked me up and allowed me to be a career coach to
Yeah.
some of their weekend online executive MBA
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
And that was a big, big shift for me
Yeah.
because I was able to coach a lot of people and see what processes worked and which ones didn't.
Right. Right.
And so through that process, I was able to publish a book, win some awards, pick up more clients, start to blog
Yeah.
more, right?
Yeah.
Just slowly building to
Yeah.
where we're at today.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2014, I actually lost my job.
Wow.
And so then it was kind of the universe's way of saying, hey, what are you going to do?
Jump in the pool already. Get out there.
So
It's a pebble or it's a brick,
Yeah.
one way or
Yeah.
another.
Man, I look back at those days and just what you said a second ago, which was around the fear.
Yeah.
I completely felt that fear
Yeah.
in the fourth quarter of 2014.
Right.
But then 2015 came and I was essentially working in my business full time.
Yeah.
Which was one-to-one executive coaching,
Yeah.
some team training, and then traveling to speak publicly. And the way that I knew that it was going to be okay was that in the beginning of 2015, the first 4 months of that year, I made more money in
Yeah.
that 4 months than I made in all of the previous year.
That's amazing.
And that's how I knew that,
Yeah.
to your point, I needed
Yeah.
to be pushed off of the safety
Yeah.
boat and
Yeah.
into something that was a little bit rocky, but
Yeah.
I was meant to do.
Right.
And so for the last 3 years, there have been a lot of things that have come my way, but still a lot of one-to-one coaching,
Yeah.
traveling to be able to speak publicly, team trainings and certificate programs, things
Yeah.
along those lines.
Yeah.
You mentioned
Awesome.
when we started podcasting, so I've got a podcast called
Yeah.
Equal Chance to Be Unequal.
I love that name.
It's so
I love
fun.
the name of your show. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fabulous. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So for everybody,
Yeah.
Equal Chance to Be Unequal.
Follow it. I will put all the information right here, so you will see where his podcast is.
Yeah.
He has amazing guests as well.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And again, thank you for being a guest a couple weeks back.
Thank you.
So there have been so many wonderful things that I've learned through these processes, and I think next year, 2019, is going to be an even better year for me because of the things that I've learned in 2018.
Yeah.
The blessings that I've been given, the challenges that I've gone through, the changes that have
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And so next year there'll be more weekend retreats that I'll facilitate. There'll
Yeah.
be half-day workshops that
Yeah.
I facilitate,
Awesome.
online classes.
Awesome.
But we all have to go through that journey in some way. And so I'm very grateful for the journey that I've had until today,
Yeah.
but also this feeling of optimistic possibility for
Yeah.
whatever might happen
Right.
in 2019.
Right. And, Michael, everything that you're saying is just so amazing. What do you think of 2018, this past year that we just had? There were a lot of people that I encountered also that had a lot of challenges, and they had a lot of fears and a lot of losses and a lot of transition. There was a lot of transition
Yeah.
going on. And I feel like 2019 carries a whole new set of energy.
Yeah.
There's a new set of energy,
Yeah.
right? And how would you describe your sense of this coming year?
Yeah. 2019, and for everybody listening and watching, please walk into 2019 with just boundless optimism.
Yes. Yes. I
20
agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
So 2018 was very much about what are those old mindsets, thoughts, beliefs, patterns, anything that we wanted to shed.
Right.
And 2019 is really going to be about what are those things that we can bring in that we've been wanting to do for a while.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so it's really about saying, what are the things that I really, really want, right? Taking the time to visualize those things and then really making sure that on a day-to-day basis that your daily habits and rituals are in alignment with making those things happen,
Right.
right? So that's important.
Yes, very important. And so tell me, what are some of those habits, some of those things that we should have in alignment? I mean, it's one thing to have the mindset, right? To think optimistically about the future and having goals, right? Having a clear direction of where you want to go. And sometimes we don't know what those goals are, but sometimes if you write something down, I have found that if it gives you a feeling, if it causes a reaction, then it's probably something you should do.
Yeah.
But what are some of those habits or things that you do
Sure.
to stay in alignment?
Yeah. Great question. Thank you for asking. I do keep a journal on a day-to-day basis, and I was actually at coffee this morning actually talking about this very topic, so I know it's important.
Yeah.
That particular journal is something that I enter content into every single day, and I track a lot of different things from my feelings and emotions to really, really major events, wins that I had.
Good.
Sometimes I even refer to it as my quote-unquote pain journal.
Oh.
Because sometimes when we have specific pains, whether it's in our hearts or in our emotions or whatever, that's a sign from the universe that we need to keep an eye on that specific thing.
Right.
So it's emotions, it's the pains that we're feeling, it's
Yep.
the wins that we're having,
Yep.
it's the patterns that we're seeing. And
Yep.
so the reason why this is important is that when we track this on a day-to-day basis, I would really heavily encourage everybody listening and watching
Yeah.
to make sure that on the first of the month, you look back at the previous 30 days and you say, okay, what the heck happened? Like, what were those blessings? What were those things that were
Yep.
challenges? What do I need to tweak or adjust in this next 30 days to make sure that I'm getting more authentic, more me, and I'm spending a bigger percentage of my day living my life's mission?
I love that. So it's like a 30-day reflection period. It just have your
Yeah.
check-in moment.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important stopping point, right? You have to stop to relish. I think one of my challenges too was, we live in a fast-paced world, and you do amazing work, I'm doing work, and it's getting recognized, and sometimes that can just pass so fast.
Yeah.
And yet the pain that happens, we tend to kind of soak in that for a little bit, right? Longer than we should, right? And we
Right.
should probably also be relishing on the good. How do you kind of juggle those two? I mean, I know there's a sense, and with a lot of professionals that I've worked with, to the top CEOs of big companies too, they have this sense of imposter syndrome. Have you heard of imposter syndrome? That
Yep.
feeling that, I don't know if I'm going to get caught because I don't want people to think that I don't know what I'm talking about, when
Yeah.
really you do,
Yeah.
and it's like this thing that happens. How would you describe that?
Yeah.
Have you had that happen? Have
Oh,
you
of
had that
course.
feeling? Yeah.
I certainly have felt it in my own heart and then folks that I've served. And so
Yeah.
fear of failure, fear of success,
Yep.
imposter syndrome, those things certainly exist.
Yeah.
And so I think the real significant key is that whenever we have a feeling today, it is oftentimes driven by some past event. So all emotional reactivity
Yep.
today
Yep.
is due to that past wound.
Yep.
So when you have that feeling of imposter syndrome, automatically assign, okay, when did I last feel this, or where did this come from in
Yep.
your past?
Yep.
Go back to that event, whatever that was,
Yep.
and make sure that you're doing a great job of saying, okay, that really wasn't the most awesome of experiences, but here are the 3 things I learned from it.
Yep.
And then here are the ways that I've been able to bless the
I love
community
it.
as a result.
Yep.
So then it takes what would normally be a negative feeling in your
Yeah.
heart,
Uh-huh.
and it makes it a positive thing.
That's right.
Okay, and then we can start to go forward and actually feel as though we deserve the blessings coming our way.
Bingo. Write that down. Write that down. I'm glad we're recording this and getting this out to the world, because that is so powerful. I was just watching a TED Talk the other day too, and it was around emotional intelligence. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when the speaker said, she said, in the mornings when you wake up, have you ever had that cranky feeling? All of a sudden you think of the one thing that you're going to do for the day, and next thing you know, it leads you down this rabbit hole of anxiety and of things going wrong, right? And she said that usually that is your brain predicting. It's a great predictor. It knows how to figure out decisions that you need to do throughout the day, but it's only going to do well based off the experiences that you've had, right? Reflecting on that past experience. And so if in the morning you're creating this anxiety, you create it. We create it, right? We're in charge of that thought process. If we're creating that thought process, and if our brain is going to the negative, well, we're predicting the negative, because that's based off an experience. You probably had a negative experience in the past, and that's the only way it's going to reference that future. And so create new experiences, right? Reflect on the past. If you know that was a painful experience, turn it into something else.
Bingo.
Create new experiences so that same decision you need to make will be giving you a whole new different result.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But humans have a tendency, and I've certainly done this, so I'm speaking to myself here, is that when we start to get confronted by challenging scenarios and situations, because of the fight or flight response in the human brain, we automatically go to what are those potential bad things that could happen, as opposed to triggering a more positive or optimistic thought in the mind to say, okay, this is possible, but there's also these 100 million other possibilities that could be really, really in line for you. So it's a matter of saying, yep, possibility, and that's pessimistic or a negative approach, but let's also then write down at the exact same time all the other blessings.
The alternatives. What's the other side of that coin? And I think that's I think the key to understanding your own emotional intelligence, that you can switch that. You can flip it. You know, the past experience doesn't have to become your future, you know, but yeah, totally love it. We're going to take a quick little break, so don't go anywhere. I want to make sure that we say hi to everybody who's engaging with us. Please leave us your name, your comments, questions for Michael. I would love to make sure that we engage with you as well. Don't go anywhere. I've got a bunch of programs that I want to share with you. We'll be right back. Hi, my name is Edgar Olivo. I'm the founder and senior business trainer of Compass CBS. Today I want to give you 5 reasons why you should take Microsoft courses with us. Over 80% of companies are now using Microsoft and require it as a skill. You'll be more productive and produce better results for your clients. You'll earn more money over the span of your career. You'll work faster and improve your quality of work. And it opens the door to many more possibilities. We have highly trained and certified bilingual experts ready to help you achieve your professional goals. Call us at 602-759-0553 or register on our website. See you at Compass CBS. Welcome back. Thank you so much. I hope you like those programs. We have so many resources for you. I'm going to make sure that we also share Michael's information. So if you're an organization that would love to have Michael come in and speak and coach your team, Michael's a great resource. I've been recommending you left and right. Every single person that crosses your path comes right back and says, oh my gosh, I loved Michael. And usually when I see that person again, you're the center of that conversation again. I'm like, oh yeah, what did Michael tell you? That's amazing. What great advice. So Michael, I love the work that you're doing as well. And your way of thinking. And I love one thing about you, that you are so good at reflecting on your past to build your future. And I think that practice is so critical in today's world because, like I said, it's a fast-changing world. There's so many things now that are expected of us. If you just turn on the news, I mean, you're watching literally the purge of corruption as we speak, right? Or if you're watching it, you're watching the largest real estate transaction ever made. You know, however you want to take this, you know, I feel like the news is also kind of propelling a lot of negativity, right? It's not really letting us think. And I think when we're able to think and we're able to reflect on our past experiences, we can build a future. We can build the direction that we want to take this. And at the same time, if you're conscious about community, right, and conscious about the people around you, and you wake them up as well, which I think is what coaching is, it's waking people up to that realization, we're going to make a better world. It's going to become an amazing, I think it already is an amazing world if we see it that way. Yeah,
and that's really hard. And so well said. And I think the thing that is really important for all of us to like take away from what Edgar just said is that the mainstream media does tend to focus a little bit on some of those negative events.
Because it's a trigger.
Yeah. It's easy for people to pay attention to it.
Exactly.
So if we can kind of shut that off, at least for a little bit in our day, and really start to spend time in nature or with close friends or with people who are helping us to advance, that's where there's a lot of possibility. So when I think about 2019, and I'm obviously a huge fan of authenticity, what I would really love for everybody to remember is to say, is there a way for us to just take 30 minutes extra where we're not paying attention to what's on the internet or potentially on some pieces of social media or the mainstream media, and finding a way to spend time with people that are really going to up-level us in a meaningful way. Because there's the quote, right? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so if they are this really, really unique, fun tribe that can help you advance to what it is you're trying to do long-term, oh my gosh, your future is going to change.
Oh, 100%. 100%. What is the old saying? Feed your network and your network will feed you.
Oh, that's great.
But, you know, it's one of those strategies, but but really more than a strategy, I think it's a way of living, right? It's just a way of connecting and adding value to someone else, and vice versa. It's a give and take relationship, like the cups, like this. You're feeding each other, right? Sometimes one guy's lower, well, you fill the other guy up, right? But there's also the trap too, and I've seen this in the workplace too, that you know, there's usually that one person who's taking on all the work, right, and not letting others contribute as well. What would you say to a person like that who's watching and says, I'm taking everybody else's job on, and I'm the martyr of the company, right? How would you address that person?
Yeah, it really, and thank you for asking that question. So for everybody, just be very, very cognizant of asking yourself, like, what is your personal mission, or what are your core values? And so if you can come back to the basics of really addressing what those things are for you, and then do almost like a 2-week time study, and then say, what is it that I'm actually doing day to day that is in alignment with my mission or with my core values? And if you're seeing that there's a pretty strong disconnect, and that you're not able to do that because you're picking up someone else's work or doing some things that are out of alignment with who you are, that's where you would want to have that talk with yourself and say, here's what I'm going to do to change.
Yep.
Go and speak with your boss
Yes.
or whoever you work
Yes.
with and say, okay, how can we move some things around here that I wasn't doing before?
Mm-hmm.
And really set new expectations.
I like that.
So if we set new expectations
Yes.
and then we can slowly work into this new behavior,
Yes.
I promise that you're going to feel much
Yep.
different in
Mm-hmm.
the next 2 to 3 weeks than you might have 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Right, right. And setting new expectations is a form of creating boundaries as well.
That's fine.
I think I shared this on your podcast. You know, one of the things that I live by now is, you know, promise. If you promise something, do it, right? But don't overpromise. Don't promise things that you can't do. That's another kind of like you have to look at yourself honestly, you know. And sometimes we get into the tendency that we want to look good in front of the boss, or we want to, you know, advance our career, and maybe, yeah, sure, I'll sacrifice the family and the kids. But really, you're saying, no, look deeper and say to yourself, what is it that's going to make you happy? What is it that you're going to do that's going to be the most productive?
Yeah.
Because there are things that others can do to also help you,
Yeah,
right?
completely.
How do you tell someone, what would you tell somebody who has a hard time asking for help?
So the way that I look at this, and great question, is that whenever I ask another person for help or a question, it's basically honoring their expertise.
Yeah.
Right? So instead of looking at it and saying, well, I feel silly because I might not be as smart as such and such
Right,
person,
right.
flip the script a little bit and say, this person has a subject matter expertise that I would like to honor. And so look at it
Ooh,
from that
that's nice.
standpoint
Mm-hmm.
and say, in my world, there are no silly questions.
Right.
And so I want to honor this person's expertise because I want to honor it first.
Right.
But secondarily, I believe that what he or she is about to say
Yeah.
is actually something that's going to advance me towards my goals.
Right.
So don't be afraid
Yeah.
to confront that fear.
Yeah.
Just flip the mental script a little bit to say, this person has something that I need in order to better my life, better my family,
Yeah.
advance my career,
Yeah.
get me closer to my life's
Yeah.
mission, whatever that is.
Right.
So just a little minor shift
Yeah.
in how we approach it
Yeah.
can mean
Can
biggest
change
changes.
everything.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. When I first started doing training, I think I've shared this too on your podcast. If you want to listen to the whole story, make sure you check out his podcast. I'm giving you some plugs here, Michael. But one of the things that I'll briefly share is I remember feeling stuck in my own career and thinking, what's next? It was also around the recession, and I was making more money during the recession than most people around me. And at my age, in the environment that I was working in, it was a casino that people were gambling their mortgages away and that sort of thing. So yeah, we hit record numbers, which is a disgusting feeling. I really didn't like that. That was an awful thing, but I'm glad I went through that because I got to learn so much about myself. And because of that is where I'm at today. And there was a person who came into the room and she did this training and I was just blown away. I thought, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to do. It took me 6 months to send her a message to ask, hey, how did you do that? Or what do you recommend I should? It took me 6 months because I was so afraid of what she was going to think about me. I was so afraid that she was going to, you know, all these things. And I hope she's watching and I'll tag her just to make sure she watches. You have changed my life, Jen. You have changed my life. And I think you two have met too at one of our inaugurations. But that is the power of asking for help, right? That's part of the power that it could totally point you right back. Have you ever heard of this phrase about the cork on the water? Right, corks need to float. Right, that's what they're. If you put them on water, that's floating. And so if you think of water as your energy, the energy that carries you through, right?
Yep.
If you're moving around in life and you're unhappy, it's like you're holding the cork down under the water, right?
Yeah.
At some point, we have to let it go so it can float back up, and that's when you start to feel like you're in the vibration, in the, what do you call it? You're vibing.
Yeah.
That's what my friends now say.
I like
You're
it.
vibing. We're vibing, right? But you know, in life, there are waterfalls.
Yep.
But what does that cork do?
Yep.
It'll bounce right back up.
Totally does.
Right?
Every
Bounces
time.
right back up. So we can't forget that. Michael, what else would you recommend someone who's starting this year, 2019, and is saying, you know, I'm watching those two guys right there, and they're talking about how they made switches in their life. I want to do that switch in my life. What would you tell that person?
Yeah. So if you've set, so we talked a little bit earlier about personal missions, knowing your values, and I'm just a really big fan of having goals. So I set goals that are in 3 basic buckets. So professional, personal, and relationship based.
Yeah.
And so there's always got to be goals that are somewhat built upon that. So once you set those goals, make sure that you've determined what are essentially the 2 or 3 actions that you can do weekly that are going to make those happen.
Yeah.
So then once you've got the goals set and you know those weekly behaviors that if you can exhibit them, the goals are going to happen.
Yep.
What's important then is to think about who is your accountability partner or partners. So
Tell somebody your goals.
yes, exactly. Yeah. So because
Not
then-
everybody, somebody.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So definitely have that partner that's there to help you because once you do that, now you've got this trusted confidant. It could be a romantic partner,
Right.
it could be a spouse,
Right.
it could be, you know, a colleague, a coach, right? Somebody like Edgar. And it can be whoever you need it to be, but you need to share it with somebody, because I promise you
Yeah.
that they're going to have resources and ideas and things that you can rely on
Yep.
as you're going through your process.
Because they're in the outside, right? They're
Yeah.
in the outside. They, you know, the person who is trying to work on their goals, they're going through their own process. But it's nice having that outside
Yeah.
perspective. It's, I know you're a little irrational in that fear. Maybe,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
let's find some evidence of where that fear is coming up. You know, and
Yeah.
if there isn't any evidence, it's irrational.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
What else? What else should they do? Well, actually, speaking on goals, what kind of goals should we be making, and in what areas of our life?
Sure. So if we think about those like personal goals specifically, I'm just a really big fan. It seems like we're going through this rise in consciousness in some
Yeah.
way, if you will.
100%
So
agree.
from a personal standpoint, if you think about your health differently,
Right.
there is a website or a company called Viome, Viome.com, and they are literally cataloging the microflora in your gut.
Wow.
So their theory is that all illness today is optional. So
Interesting.
literally imagine a world where you don't have to get sick. So if
Wow.
one of your personal goals is about, you know, kind of controlling caloric intake, or thinking about those things that you eat, food or drink, or thinking about exercise. Edgar and I were talking before we got on the show with regards to being out in nature and
Yep.
making time for hiking and walks, whatever
Yep.
those things are. So personal goals around things that have to do with your health or
Right.
being outside,
Right.
really super important.
I immediately feel better. I mean, I tell this to anyone I'm coaching, any organization too. I said, if you're starting to feel that slump, or you know, you start to feel the stress, get up, go outside, take a walk around the block, let nature give you the
Yeah.
energy back through oxygen, just through breathing. Sit under a tree for a couple of minutes. Just think about what you're feeling, and then come back and kick some ass,
Yeah.
you know?
That's all it takes. That's all it takes, because
Just
we need
connecting
a reset.
to nature. Yes, we need a reset. And I think because we are creatures of the earth, right? We have to tap into that, and sometimes we forget.
Yep.
And I want to talk too about you've mentioned a little bit about your lifestyle, and in the sense of, you know, tapping into energy healing and getting into that space. I think it's so important, and you know, it's so interesting. It used to be so taboo to even talk about it, but
Agreed.
now I love that it's getting front and center into our professional lives. It's the only way we're going to be consciously producing in the world, right? Being
Yep.
aware. I love the triple P, you know, people, profit, planet
Yeah.
concept. Tell me about that. Tell me
Yeah.
about that. I want to hear
Yeah.
what you're doing, how you're doing. What do you recommend? Because I think it is so important nowadays.
I agree. And so thank you for asking. It's the whole conscious capitalism movement, the triple bottom line movement. Thankfully, there's a shift in society. Capitalism itself is very, very good.
Yeah.
But in the last probably 30, 40, 50 years, it hasn't always been used for good.
Yeah.
And so thankfully now, through the growth of people having the ability to do and explain things about themselves, or higher shifts in consciousness, however you want to say
Right.
it, there are things like energy healing and that you can engage.
Right.
And so when I think about life coaching, or I think about energy healing, or I
Yep.
think about Reiki healing,
Yep.
call it what you like,
Yep.
counseling, therapy, doesn't matter.
Yep.
I would encourage you to have one.
Yes.
I have one that I see at least once per month, and
I
I
love
am
it.
so incredibly thankful for
Yeah.
her, and I have no qualms whatsoever with
Yeah.
talking about her.
Yeah.
Because there are things that she has been able to bring to light for me that I had never even known existed, that were possible. And the lightness that I feel in my heart as a
Yeah.
result of talking to her about specific things
Yeah.
that are not just business profit oriented,
Right.
and that they really have to do with me healing old emotional wounds,
Yes.
restoring relationships with family
Yes.
members.
Yes.
You know, these things matter a ton.
Oh, so much,
So-
so much, because I think Warren Buffett said, if you let words take control of your emotions, you will always be a slave to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, there are triggers, right? There are triggers that happen in life. Like, you'll see an image on social media and it'll trigger something, or you hear something from someone that you probably haven't had that healing experience, and it'll trigger you, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you're able to get on that restoration process and just kind of heal it, it's like closing a leaky faucet and fixing it,
Yeah.
you know, so that you can move on with your life
Yep.
and create new sets of experiences and new energy.
So true.
I love that.
So true.
I love that.
So one of the books that was really influential for me this year was written by Ron and Mary Holnick, and it's called Loyalty to Your Soul. And I read it midsummer, and it really did have a really significant impact on my life, because it talked an awful lot about the spiritual journey that all humans go through. Even though our society doesn't always necessarily talk about it,
Yeah.
we all have kind of curriculum or things that we're learning while
Yeah.
we're here on Earth.
Right.
And it is such an important thing to consider that not only do we have to accomplish things in a business or a professional context, but then there's also things that as we learn them in a more spiritual or emotional way, that's actually going to unlock the next level of your life in a way that you might not have considered before.
I agree. I mean, I'm sure you talk to so many successful people, and they probably have some element of spiritual side to them, right?
Yep.
They're not as caught up in all of the emotional garbage that comes with not healing some stuff that
Sure.
you probably should be reflecting on, because either we're hiding it away or putting it away so I can focus on other stuff. But at some point, you do have to kind of, lock hands again with
Yep.
someone who you were,
Yep.
so that you can decide where you're going to go.
Yeah.
What are some of the experiences that you've had with people that are doing this as well?
Sure. Yeah, there's been a number of clients that I've been able to serve that even if they're connected to like one specific religion or one specific belief pattern, which is great. On Earth there are more than 7,000 recognized religions.
Wow.
And so those are just the recognized ones, right? So think about all of the others that are out there.
Yep.
So there are lots of different perspectives and ways in which we go about accomplishing our goals.
Right.
And so the thing that's beautiful even about what you do, Edgar, is that you can do things in both a Spanish speaking context and in an English speaking context, and very few people have that perspective. Now, way back in 2009, I actually learned to speak Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah, that's
And-
one of the fun
moly.
things I know about Michael.
I do not speak very well now, but the reason I bring it up is that when you start to expose people to a different pattern of thought or a different behavioral profile or style,
Yeah.
all of a sudden they start to look at their colleagues really differently. And the reason this is important is because we start to allow other people the dignity of their own process in life.
Right.
And so if we
Right.
expose them to new ideas,
Yes.
whether it's Reiki healing or energy healing
Right.
or different types of religion,
Yes.
all of a sudden they start to see other people and accept them for their
Yes.
differences, which to me is everything.
What a novel idea. What a novel concept. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor's, the emperor's notes, I forgot.
Yeah.
He wrote in there one time, he was taking these notes, and it's a leadership book. It's an amazing book. And he was saying that, he was in these battles, and when the soldiers, they would all rest, he would take time to write, and he would sometimes get really frustrated with some of the soldiers that wouldn't do as he said or had a different opinion, and he wondered why that bothered him so much.
Sure.
And I remember in the book he says, I have to remember that the universe works the same for me as it does for him.
Love that.
You have to remember the universe works the same. Everyone has their own calendar, everyone has their own goals, everyone has their own priorities, triggers, you name it, right?
So
and
true.
if you, like you just said, you
Yeah.
let others just give them the dignity of being themselves, that's an amazing concept. I mean, I think you'll start building better friendships, and things won't bother you as much
Yeah.
because people are just being themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a really hard thing for our society because the education system
Yeah.
and all of the belief patterns that
Yeah.
we've absorbed over time says that we should behave a certain way.
Right.
And that's okay, but thankfully, different levels of consciousness were kind of shaking some of those old belief patterns, and we are starting to accept people for their uniqueness, their
Yeah.
authenticity, and their difference. So
Yeah.
when you walk into 2019, definitely make it about finding those things that are most authentic and unique about you.
About you.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then also ask other people around you those very questions about them,
Yes.
right?
love
figure
that.
that stuff out.
Yep.
And
Together.
then you should, exactly. And if we can find a way to recognize and celebrate others for
Yeah.
that uniqueness and
Yeah.
appreciate them in a way that they want to be appreciated, oh my gosh, imagine the world we live in.
And it will boil down to communication skills, right? We need to
Yeah.
have these conversations that I feel like, maybe over time we didn't get the training adequately, like you just
Yeah.
said, and the educational system has failed us in different ways, but at the same time it has served us in other ways,
Sure.
right? But I think this is where now, as adults who are developing emotional intelligence, I think that's one of the goals in life that you should also try to work
Yeah.
on. And I don't know if you ever finish that, because as I speak with older folks, and I'm gravitated to older people. In fact, people around me tend to be a lot older, and usually the folks that are in my age category, we're like helping each other. We're like eye
Yeah.
to eye, and then
Yeah.
I love talking to older people who have had more experience than you, and I listen to the problems that they had and how they look at them now, and there's so much release, there's so much let go.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, well, what can I be letting go right now,
Exactly.
so I don't have to
Good
worry
for you.
about that in 20 years,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. What are your thoughts into tapping into that kind of wisdom?
Yeah, it is so incredibly important. And
Yeah.
so Gary Vaynerchuk, if you guys ever look at like GaryV.com, he's got a lot of great stuff. But one of the things that he had made recommendations for a number of months ago, I remember seeing it, and then I actually practiced it, was to spend time, like Edgar said, with folks who are way more experienced, or they're at the end of their life, or they're elderly, whatever you want to say, and ask them about their regrets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had done that a couple of times through volunteering and also talking to my own family. And when I started asking them questions about their regrets, I was just struck with the emotion of that, because
love it.
when you see or interface with a person who has been through another 50 years of life that
Yep.
you haven't been through,
Yeah, exactly.
there's an immense wisdom in that.
Yep.
And so you can learn from their mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes
Yep.
potentially.
Yep.
So seek out those mentors
Yep.
that might be 25, 50 years older than
Yep.
you. Ask them questions about the things in life that they regretted not doing,
Yep.
or the things in life that they're most proud of.
Yeah.
And I promise you that you're going to learn some really unique things
Yes.
that will make you come back to center for yourself.
Yep.
And be like, okay, I need to feel a comfort in taking risks on these things that I hadn't necessarily thought of before.
I love that. And I think if you're blessed enough to have your parents around, they should be the first people, in my opinion, to be the first people you ask, do you have any regrets in your life, right?
Yeah.
Asking them about their journey and their life is kind of like the precursor of how you got here, right? It's kind of what
Totally.
set you up. And if you understand where they were coming from at the time, you know, what my mom used to say, before you were here, it was me and your dad. And and that just kind of stuck with me, right? You know, you think about, oh, no, there was an entire life and another life before me. I'm not the center of the universe. I need to stop thinking that, right? And I need to take into consideration the wisdom
Yep.
that is in front of me. And if you have your grandparents, ask them as well. I think just through your
Yep.
own family lineage, you can start to heal your own lineage. I really believe
Agreed.
in what we're talking about is healing our lineage from here moving forward, because I think everyone who gets into that practice, we build a better world starting with yourself.
Yeah,
Right?
I
Starts with
completely
yourself.
agree.
Yeah.
And so I talk about that a lot with the friends, and even
Yeah.
some of the clients that I have that are close, is to think about the hard work that any of us do right now to kind of end 2018 and to welcome 2019. It really is important that we do it, because it will heal the generations that come after us.
Right.
So it might be difficult, it might be challenging in the moment, it might be emotional, all
Yep.
the things. They will be, I promise you, and
Yep.
that's okay.
Yep.
But the more that you heal it, the more that the generations that come after are going to not have to then experience that same emotion feeling thing.
Right.
And I have a stepdaughter, and I think about her daily and saying, how can I do something challenging and tough for myself so that she doesn't have to experience something similar for herself?
Right.
And so whatever that motivation is for you, please tap into it.
Yes,
But
yes.
do it in a way that allows for you to heal yourself, knowing that the folks that come after, they're going to have the ability to learn from the lessons that you've already learned.
I love it. I love it. And Michael, you have a lot of resources. You've done a lot of writing. Tell me about your books. And there's one book in particular. No, I've read, you have two now, right?
Yeah.
You have two, and
Yeah.
I've read them both. Incorporate You. And what was the name of the other book?
The first one is actually Fearing Mediocrity.
Yes, that's it. That's it. Fearing Mediocrity. That was such an amazing book.
Yeah.
You're such an amazing writer. I love learning about your story, about your dad and the business and how it shaped who you are today
Totally.
and all those things. And
Yeah.
I was reading it on my Kindle and just working at the same time, just like I could not put it down. I think your story needs to be shared with as many people as possible. How can they find these books, and
Yeah.
how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So easiest way to find me is michaelseaver.com. There are two S's there in the center. My middle name is Scott. Some of the other web addresses that are similar to my name are already taken.
Other famous people, right?
Yeah, so michaelseaver.com.
Yeah.
Edgar mentioned it earlier. I do have a podcast. It's called Equal Chance to Be Unequal. You can get it on my website. You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on
Yeah.
Google Play. And so Incorporate You was the second book. Fearing Mediocrity was the first book.
Yeah.
And there are probably 175 plus blog posts on my website.
Wow.
And you'll see all the podcast episodes there.
Every newsletter.
Yeah.
I consume it within minutes. The second it jumps into my mailbox.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I just, there are so many lessons that I've learned through life, and I just feel blessed that I have a little bit of a platform to find a way to share it so that
Yeah.
other people can not have to go through the things that I did.
Yeah.
And I look at this, and I remember somebody saying it to me, and it really struck me, and I want everybody to remember this, is that if you can be the person you needed when you were younger, that is a really good life.
That's right.
It has a really good life. So
That's right.
identify those challenges that you went through when you were younger. Think about the process and the people that helped you overcome that challenge.
Yep.
And the mission that you're going to have today is helping other people overcome that exact same challenge for themselves.
I
And
love it.
it is such an easy equation, but not talked about often in society.
right.
So thank you for giving me
Yep.
a platform to share it.
I'm glad you said it.
But for everybody, be the person you needed when you were younger. It is so powerful.
Bingo. Bingo. And I think that is the best way to end our first inaugural show. Michael, thank you so much for sharing so much wisdom. I think gosh, every time I talk to you, it's just I walk out feeling so energized, and you make so much sense, and you have such a bright future ahead of you. I can't wait to see. Please get in touch with Michael. He's got so many amazing resources. Follow him as well.
Yeah.
So there you have it, an amazing conversation with Michael Seaver. Check out all of his information. Follow him on social media. He has such inspirational leadership quotes on there that it will charge your day every day. Make sure you find that information. And also check out our website. We've got a ton of classes that you can come check out here at Compass CBS. Follow our channels. This is going to be the beginning of an amazing chapter for us. Now that we're sharing content in English, share this video, give us a like, put your comments in the section below, and we will see you in the following week with our next guest. I'll tell you the surprise. Just follow us on our channels. We'll see you next time.